Again, hello and welcome to the B3i Re launch event. My name is Red, and we are being joined by Antonio di Marzo and John Carolin today. A little bit of logistics from our side. John will be discussing the vision, latest developments at B3i, and where the business is headed. We'll hand across to Antonio di Marzo, who will give the introduction to B3i Re, and he'll give us an idea of what's new. And then what this means for the industry. At the end of the session will be about 30 minutes to 45 minutes with John and Antonio, and then we'll have the opportunity for Q&A, and you'll find that at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be able to ask us, put your questions to us, and we'll have those answered by John and Antonio at some point. So John, let's hand over to you to kick things off.
Thanks very much, Red, and hello everyone, and welcome to my home office. Thank you very much for joining us today. So for some time now, persistent low investment returns and combined ratios north of 100% has had the insurance industry looking for ways to reduce costs and improve customer services. In the highly connected industry that is the insurance industry, only so much can be done by a single company acting alone. At B3i, we believe that by working together for the benefit of the entire industry, by establishing processing standards, data protocols, and mutualizing industry infrastructure, we can significantly reduce market-wide inefficiencies, freeing individual companies to execute differentiating digital strategies. This fundamentally improves the current insurance model: faster, better, more affordable insurance. B3i is far more than just a technology company. We came together in 2016 as a global insurance industry initiative to create a market utility leveraging distributed ledger technology to reduce costs and to facilitate growth. We were incorporated in 2018 and are now owned by 20 global insurance companies on 5 continents. Along with our shareholders and more than 50 companies as customers, collaborators, and shareholders, we've worked together and pulled on the domain expertise of more than 250 people that have brought us to where we are today. We met a year ago to announce the release of CAT Excess of Loss version 1.0, and a lot has happened since then. We deployed CAT Excess of Loss to the production environments of our customer companies. A number of those were done on B3i Cloud Managed Nodes, a service we called Node as a Service, which we had to develop in response to customer demand. We had the live parallel run of 1/1 renewals, which included 49 contracts, multiple legal entities, and notional treaty values in the billions. In 2020, our team have kept their heads down during what have been challenging circumstances and have been hard at work making significant changes under the hood, as well as developing numerous additional functionalities and features, which you'll hear more about today. With all the focus on B3i Re today, I'd like to put this application in context. What people see when they use B3i Re is a web application, a front end like any other. But really, this is just the tip of the iceberg above the water. There's a lot of magic happening underneath the hood. There is no central database. There is a distributed network of customer nodes interacting, tied together seamlessly in the front end. And what is more, we've architected and built our own applications in a way that allows others to leverage our building blocks whilst maintaining interoperability. Because we're building a market utility for the benefit of all, we want our network and platform to enable third parties to build interoperable solutions that address problems across all aspects of insurance. We do this by firstly establishing a network, which we've done. Then we build a platform of common reusable components, data standards and protocols, and a reference application. B3i Re is that reference application. It's our lighthouse product to show other people the way. And then we enable third-party applications to solve specific problems for customers, and more on that in a moment. So let me walk you through the latest developments at B3i. A year ago, we launched our Lighthouse product, the reference application for reinsurance, showing other people what is possible. We then established our production network and had the live parallel run, which I've spoken about. Today, we have some really exciting news. We're launching a significantly enhanced B3i Re. This is cat excess of loss rebranded because it is moving to an application that is relevant for all of reinsurance. We've created a scalable delivery organization that is moving at speed, leveraging nearshore partners. Our first third-party application was recently announced. We're actively developing commercial insurance use cases, and we have many projects in the pipeline. So directionally, where we headed. Let me give you some insights which may not be apparent looking purely at the list of features and functionalities. Under the hood, we've got technical accounting incorporated into the application for the first time. This puts functionality in the hands of users that generates real and tangible benefits and savings in time and effort. We will also be moving to all types of reinsurance, including all contract types. So this makes our product more broadly relevant and can scale those benefits to all users. We've also developed an API which will allow contracts generated or contracts bound off ledger to be ingested by B3i nodes. This opens up the possibility for third-party placement applications to generate B3i compliant contracts, and then all the downstream benefits from technical accounting can be shared by all the parties on those contracts. Furthermore, integration allows the benefits to scale. It brings us that step closer to straight-through processing for large volumes of business through the many contract types, as well as many entry points to create contracts on ledger. Once we move into payments, extinguishing liabilities on ledger, we address the huge problem of unallocated cash, freeing up more time, resources, and working capital, real money that sits typically unallocated for months. As a product development company, we've also taken a twin-track approach to our roadmap. We will broaden the functionality of reinsurance while also building out customer-specific projects, particularly focused on commercial insurance. We've also started to use delivery partners that enable scale through nearshoring some of our development activities. And we also have third-party applications that address specific needs that are built on top of our insurance industry operating system, Fluidity. These really put us in a position where through the course of 2021, the benefits that the B3i network and platform can generate can be scaled significantly for the insurance industry. With that, I'll hand over to Antonio. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, John. And really welcome to everyone. Thanks for having joined today's session. I'm really honored, to have the opportunity to describe and bring to you some of the results of the last year development. As many of you know me, it would have taken me at least 6 hours to detail exactly what we have done so far. And I need really to push myself over the boundaries to keep it brief and minimum. But I'd like to start first by really publicly thanking the team, all the engineering team at B3i, the architects, and the functional team that have been really pushing the boundaries of how to develop a compelling solution with a technology that was born a couple of days before us, which is really astonishing from my point of view. And looking at what we have done, as John has said, we started from where we left, which is the release we did last year, setting up the first ever made DLT network for the insurance and reinsurance industry, having the opportunity to have, to see brokers, cedents, reinsurers transacting live and a totally new infrastructure without leaving to them the possibility of understanding that something different was happening under the hood. That was a challenge, which was a major milestone. And on top of the feedback that we collected, that we gathered along the journey, we developed lots of new features. But the key and the most important one, it's still there and will be always there, which is the fact that through the B3i network, by leveraging distributed ledger technologies, we can enable a true single version of the truth without centralizing information in a single place, without having an organization that is actually holding the data for everyone. The data, in our case, lives always and only in the pocket of the relevant parties that are involved in a specific transaction. And that's the key power of DLT for us. The possibility of truly having a full integrated and interoperable ecosystem without centralizing the data is a true enabler for our vision, which is an industry that can exchange data, that can establish contracts, that can execute transactions without giving up the ownership of data, which is and will become the most important thing for the near, it's actually for today and the near future. But once we have created that type of value, being able of interacting with all your stakeholders, the key element there is looking at reinsurance. How can we build on top of that simple thing? Because a shared version of the truth could have been just a PDF document. It's the same for everyone. It's everywhere where it needs to be. It's not centralized, and every human being can actually read the content. But it can interpret the contract differently. It can transform the contract into different things in their own admin systems. They need manual activity in order to transform that contract into their own systems. And once the contract will be generating the financial events, like very simply premiums and brokerage that has to be paid afterwards, that works requires manual intervention. It requires calculations that they may lead to mistakes that are difficult to spot, that are difficult to fix. And so we said, let's just move a little bit beyond a static set of data. Let's move into something smart. Let's actually do a first of its kind parametric reinsurance treaty tower. And we succeeded in deploying a very minimal set of features in CatExcel 1.0 that we released last year. But we moved beyond that. We managed to extend the features, the functionalities, and we challenged ourselves. Well, the market challenged us. Because let's be frank, there are thousands of treaties out there. There are thousands of reinsurance contracts. Well, we set ourselves on the most complex ones. We developed the parameters and the features and functionalities around the most complex treaties that are today placed in the market. For that, I'm thankful, and we're all thankful to all the insurers and cedents that have supported us in analyzing their contract. But the main feature there is, it is now possible in the B3i protocol to qualify the parameters of a treaty in a smart way. And we're just talking about the version 2.0. And if you consider how technology evolves and how fast things can develop, what can happen along this trend, it's really fantastic, in my opinion. But of course, once you have a contract, you have a single version of the truth. When do you want to leverage, to share this truth? And so we decided to really make this type of protocol open, and opening it to any kind of access. Imagine it's like accessing an infrastructure, like making a phone call. And you may decide to make your phone call for arranging a dinner just 5 minutes before. or just to call after the dinner to say, yeah, the dinner was great, or just to start planning it from very, very early in the stage to look at friends and arrange the dinner. Well, it's a free to access. You can decide whenever you want to leverage the infrastructure that enables you to establish a connection, to define the terms and conditions of a contract, and then to transact the contract, to gather your quotes, to qualify what are the best prices, and enabling the broker to really have the capabilities of accessing the network at a single click, and then qualifying the signing of your treaty. So defining exactly what are the conditions that have been confirmed at the end. And after that, tracking also all the endorsements. The key mission we have is to keep always everyone on the same page at the cost of a single click. While today, to keep everyone on the same page, and if someone is capable of achieving that, it costs a lot because it needs lots of manual processing everywhere. And we want to remove that. We want to enable the industry to focus on the added value. And of course, as part of this development, having the treaty there, having a static contract that can move, having parameters that can enable the automatic processing of a contract, we started developing this year technical accounting features. And we are releasing the first version of our technical accounting module with B3i Re 2.0. What are we able to do there? We can generate accounting information, accounting entries, premiums and commissions for the treaties that have been signed on ledger. And those technical accounting data, that technical accounting entries, can be exchanged amongst different parties on the network, of course. All the relevant reinsurers, brokers, and insurers that are participating on a placement will be receiving their own portion, their own part. But of course, down the line, we said, okay, yes, but technology, it doesn't basically get adopted that fast. There is always a transition. When I initially joined my first insurance company some years ago, even though I had been assigned to a desktop with Microsoft Outlook, we still were receiving stuff through fax. And we are not famous as an industry to adopt technology that fast. So we have to think about a train track process where there are still old-fashioned way to process this information. Who knows how it's going to be in the future? We may just imagine it, but we will see. But the thing is, we will need to transfer the technical accounting information from the ledger to the general ledger of the company. And we don't want to make this manual. I wouldn't feel ashamed, actually, as an head of product. And so we partnered with a company that is supporting us in enabling this layer of integration into the existing admin systems. We can integrate with the most famous and biggest systems out there. We can integrate with by generating a core messages, and the more it comes. This is a fundamental part of our strategy, which is enabling and exploiting partnerships. Enabling and exploiting partnerships, because B3i is not a software company. It's a market bottom-up initiative that aims to bring the industry to the second level, that aims to open the door for the industry to the 4.0 club, I would say. So what we have introduced in this new release, again, I'm really thankful for the work that everyone has done, despite COVID, despite moving in a full remote work, despite all the changes that we had, despite the personal challenges. I'm really thankful for the effort that every single human being has put into it. And we managed to release 3 times the set of features compared to what we were able to deliver with 1.0. Just a few examples. We have increased a lot the level of complexity that can be embedded in how to create a treaty. It's not just a limit and an attachment point. For every single financial entity that can be qualified as a capacity, the user can define an infinite number of nested coverages inside with inclusions and exclusion in order to precisely define what are the parameters that qualify a specific event to be covered by that specific capacity, by that limit, or to qualify sublimits. and sub-limits, and all with specific conditions, and then qualifying whether the sub-limit or any other financial parameter of the contract needs to be defined in a single or multi-currency. We totally remove the need of using a single currency. The platform, the protocol can manage as many currencies as the user likes to do. Because as I said, what we saw in many of the treaties we have been working on is the level of complexity that today is embedded in those 2 lines of sentences that can be embedded in a paper contract today. There is lots of complexity, which is really challenging to transfer that complexity into code. It may be possible that just 2 sentences, 2 lines of text can be generating 100 lines of code. And that's a level of complexity that we have been embedding it. And then we have been enhancing a lot, a single feature, which is the capability of audit trailing all the transactions executed. Due to the fact that there is an immutable ledger behind, of course you can evaluate all the steps and every single field, how it was changed. But can you imagine what is the power of this feature? Instead of scrolling all your emails and checking what has changed one by one, you can exactly place your analytics on top of those APIs and understanding exactly what have been the changes. Maybe we will see real powerful things in the next year on those. And then of course we have been building loads of other features there to support brokers in their activities, to support the interaction between brokers and cedents, which is fundamental for us. We have been listening to all the stakeholders of the value chain, and there are loads of activities that are executed between brokers and cedents. And so we have been focusing in developing specific features, specific protocols action that are really meant to support that interaction, to fulfill the compliance needs of that relationship, and to give peace of mind and transparency to both, to guarantee that they can execute their value, that they can bring value to the value chain without any need of spending manual time. And we have been, as simple as that, developing a small notification engine, just a small one, that sends an email whenever there is an action that is required from a ledger side. And you can go through them, and you please join the deep dive tomorrow when we will be demoing the application transparently. You will see everything. You will see the entire set of features that we have developed. We will demo even a complex treaty. Join us, and we will have hopefully even an open discussion while we are demoing it. And we are at the 2.0 release, where we're still enabling for customers excess of loss per event treaties. We have introduced, as I said, a couple of functionalities, and we have been able, the most important thing, to extremely augment our productivity based on the knowledge, based on the experience, releasing 3 times the set of features as we released on the 1.0. And here I'm committing today for next year extension, for what will happen between September 2020 and September 2021, that by next year you will find a protocol and an infrastructure that will be able, first, to cover claims management steps, and second, to transact any type of contract, any line of business. I can say that with certainty because of the industry support. Our capability of accessing industry knowledge and really having, for which I'm really grateful, having the possibility of talking on a daily basis with underwriters while they're doing their placements, while they're doing their work, talking to brokers, which are part of our reinsurance prioritization group. It gives us the possibility of really addressing business needs. But, as I said before, B3i is an initiative that has been established by the industry players, the biggest, the market leaders, to support the whole industry through its transformation journey. And now maybe you already asked to yourself, how can B3i actually enable this with a single application? Not possible. It's impossible. Imagine if doing, a very extreme example. If Apple, through the iPhone, wanted to deliver to the market, to all the human beings that are Apple customers, all the applications that today exist on the iOS App Store, and really transforming the life of people for being digital users to mobile digital natives, you know, that we strive and we need it. The only way in order to enable that was the creation of an ecosystem, enabling it through the platform, enabling it through a layer that is reducing the complexity for developing new applications, embedding loads of features, embedding lots of reusable components that can accelerate the development of applications on top without the need of every time reinventing the wheel. Imagine if a small startup, in order to develop an application leveraging Face ID, had to develop the entire library of codes and hardware that is behind that. That's an ecosystem that is embedding that value into a platform and enabling the startup to only focus on the last bit, which is the bit that creates value. And what we at B3i are doing is embedding everything in our platform. The platform that enables the interoperability amongst multiple reinsurance applications. It's like sending an email from Outlook to any other software. You don't think and you don't care if there is any other client behind. You just send your email. You have to respect the protocol rules. You have to use the SMTP protocol, but you're not obliging anyone else to use your system in order to read your email. And they can respond, and you can respond as well. That's the vision, and that's the value of fluidity, bringing an acceleration to the industry transformation. With that, John. Cool. So what's in there for the industry? From my side, and then I leave it to you to close, John.
Sorry, I was on mute. Typical
Yeah.
2020 problem. So I think we, as I mentioned before, we arrived here today with the contribution of over 250 domain experts from the entire industry, from more than 50 companies as shareholders, collaborators, customers that have been with us for this 4-year journey. And fundamental to the change that we're trying to bring is that it is by the market for the market. And as it relates to reinsurance, we've had 85 people active in our working groups that have brought us here today. And we're very grateful for all those contributions from the industry to make this possible. But our door is also open to any shareholders, customers, and collaborators who want to join us in making this possible to really build the insurance industry platform for the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Really great session. As always, we have a Q&A session set up for all of you to put your questions to John and Antonio based off of what you've heard today. You can put them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screens, and we'll start taking those questions now. But Antonio, we've had a couple of questions come in via email before the session, I think from people who weren't able to join us today. We talk a lot about, and John, this question's for you, we talk a lot about the things under the hood. Could you go into a bit more depth on what fluidity is? We've mentioned this briefly, B3i Fluidity, but we don't really go into it. How does it support and work with the B3i Re solution that we have?
Yes. You know, developing a distributed ledger application would require, on a very, high level perspective, 80% of the engineering investment to be done on the network, the infrastructure, the protocol, and then maybe 20% on the business value. And there are many reasons for that. First of all, because it's not a vertical technology, it's a network technology. And this follows all the paradigms of any kind of network technology. Corda, which is a great technology, embeds a lot and is a general purpose technology. So it can be used by lots of different industries and for lots of different purposes. But in order to make it relevant for the insurance industry, there is a lot that needs to be invested on the infrastructural side, on the data model side. And so while developing B3i Re, we have identified exactly those elements, what is needed for the infrastructure and what is needed for the business level. And the approach for us was simple. We will make everything available in Fluidity. We will make all the code available in Fluidity for all those components that we have developed in order to ensure that anyone else that would like to bring their own solution, their own business value to the industry, they don't need to go that way again. They can leverage on an existing platform, on a distributed operating system, and on an infrastructure that is already bringing to them all the investment that was done so far. John, maybe you want to add something more on the strategic side as well.
I think you've covered it all, Antonio, unless there's specific questions. I think really the Fluidity as a platform enables us. Insurance is a complicated industry. It's complicated and complex and large, and we would all be long dead and buried if we wanted to ever try and do this alone. So Fluidity are the technical building blocks that allow other people to move at speed and act as a force multiplier for B3i by solving specific customer problems where they arise in a way that is compliant and interoperable with the standards and protocols that address the fundamental causes of those issues. And so it really, we see B3i's role as one where we're an enabler and a curator of an ecosystem for third-party applications. And we want to do that as quickly as possible. And Fluidity is turnkey for us in that respect.
We'll get to all the questions eventually, but we do have a quick follow-up to that. So when will Fluidity be generally available?
It is already available. At the moment, we have customers that are developing their applications with us. It's not open, let's say, widely available in the sense that we just published it. It's not there yet. But we have already customers that have been software providers that have been developing their applications with us. So in case you're interested in embracing a journey of developing a DLT solution, get in touch with us and we can, of course, support you and we can get you up to speed on our stack.
Red, there are a few questions in the chat. If I can pick a few of some of those.
Of course, I was going to take Christian's question.
Okay, so I'm looking at one from Paratosh about technical accounting. Will it only be applied to new business or old business as well? I think this is a very interesting one, and Antonio, feel free to elaborate. But with some of those changes under the hood, we enabling the B3i API that will allow contracts generated outside of B3i to be brought on ledger. So that could be broker platforms, but it could also be legacy business as well. So it really does open up the gates for how contracts can come in into the network and benefit from the technical accounting capabilities that we've built. Is there anything you want to expand on there, Antonio?
Just one thing, you said it well. The thing is, with the latest, we have to respond exactly to these type of requirements because of our current customers. They saw the benefit for the new business, but they also need, and most of their transactions today are related to contracts that were signed in the past, runoff contracts, but still contracts like long tail contracts that have been signed many years ago, but still are active from a claims perspective. This is possible. It is possible to import on ledger a contract that has a validity period in the past. And it is possible to then distribute that contract to the insurers that participated on that, having them sharing the same truth of this contract. So as I said, we have elaborated a protocol there that is not only enabling you to manage the future business and to manage the business along its life cycle, but also to capture just the last moment. Because what we have envisaged is that instead of sending a spreadsheet with information, if you have already an ecosystem that is there, an ecosystem that is using a protocol, you want to use that protocol for everything. And you want just to, integrate the B3i protocol into your operating model, having it integrated and using the channel of communication that is then creating accord messages whenever they are needed, or is automatically integrated into other stakeholders and so on.
Great, thank you, Antonio. Sorry, John.
There are some other questions that I look at that are quite juicy questions that I'd like the opportunity to answer. So there's one from, I think it's Kurti K. Will contract standards have open access? So as I said, we see our role as being an enabler. So we don't feel that the market utility aspect of what B3i does, that is by the market for the market, should be aggressively monetized. So we feel that it's so standards that we generate, I think what's important is that they get used. A standard becomes the standard not because it's the technically best standard, but because it's the one that is adopted most widely. So we want to ensure that the core functionality that we enable is used to enable a broad market. And so we've explored with a number of parties the idea of open sourcing some of what we do. We do need to give consideration for maintenance and extension of those protocols, but we don't look at that part of our business as one that we want to monetize. We just want it to wash its face where we see there's a lot of opportunity that we create for third parties, where the best functionality wins on top of that. So to use the analogy that Antonio used earlier about the Apple App Store, where we want to facilitate killer apps. We want to have people build a functionally rich ecosystem, and where people are building differentiating capability on top of our foundations, we expect that to be if we've built it ourselves, to monetize that, or likewise third parties to monetize that. But certainly the foundational elements of what we're doing, we just look to cover our costs. We are a for-profit company, so we need to pay the bills. But that actually leads me into another question that I saw from Richard Phipps, which was about our decision around being a for-profit or a not-for-profit. And this is one that B3i gave a lot of thought initially as a consortium a number of years ago, and it was we explored a lot of options. We explored the idea of a foundation open sourcing technology, and we explored the ideas of a for-profit, and we ultimately settled on setting up B3i Services AG, our company, as a for-profit company, because it was a way to treat shareholders' resources as limited, so that we were focused on execution, on building the best things we could to delight customers, so that they were prepared to pay for them. But ultimately, we're owned by the market and for the market, and so we take our direction. Me and my management team take our direction by a board of 12 representing our largest shareholders, and they haven't set us up to to generate a startup 10x return and extract value from our customers. They've set us up for the benefit of the whole industry, and wanting us simply to be, as a management team, incentivized correctly to create the change that B3i is trying to create. So I would say our for-profit, the incorporation as a company, is as much about us being having a for-profit mindset as anything else. What we really are is a vehicle owned by a broad section of the industry, trying to build foundational infrastructure and standards for the benefit of all.
Thanks, John. That is a really useful reminder of where we've come from and where we are today. We've got some other follow-up questions. I think, Antonio, we've just had one come in on the Q&A. It says, on general ledger and accounting integration, you were talking about before, do you require custom integration, or does B3i have a general integration pre-made for common accounting systems?
Of course, I would suggest to look and see our recent press releases of partnering with RitaBlock, which is, as I said, part of our strategy of enabling rather than just developing. And through that partnership, we will be able to deliver general integration, with multi-purpose capabilities. And so it means that, the system, the protocol can be integrated with existing most famous and enterprise-grade admin systems, but as well as generating accord messages, the eBot, eQuote, and CM as required. And to elaborate a little bit on that, that's there is an interesting question, regarding the Rushlicon e-placing community. We looked also into that, and with our domain model, which we call risk transfer language, with the risk transfer language, we cover all the data points that are required by Rushlicon. So it means that the system can easily generate an e-placing, a post-placement message that can be then elaborated. So that's part of that. And there is also another question that I like to pick, which is related to our activity on RegTech and SubTech. It is true that we do, real innovation, but we are not really disrupting the way the industry works. So the way we are enabling this new infrastructure, this new operating model, is by playing exactly at the very same rules of how the current industry behaves. And so regulators, we are not a concern from them, because we represent another technology stack for them that is compliant with their requirements. Our focus is to establish the business value for the industry. That business value represents the key then to open the regulatory discussion and to evaluate where to go, if we want to also simplify that word and we want to increase the level of technology. We have explored this area, and we have seen that a lot can be done from a regulatory standpoint to bring the regulators as an observer of a transaction, and removing, for example, the need of having the batch reporting executed constantly and manually by the actors of the transactions. Everyone has those, if we look at Solvency II, all the reporting that is done at the end of every quarter, depending on which model you are applying. And this type of infrastructure brings the regulator in as an active role. And so it brings them from passive regulation to actually active regulation, and removes let's say, the tax, the cost of the regulation. How much does it cost today to be compliant and to fulfill with those regulations? So we have seen a lot, but we want to guarantee first that the industry understands what's the business value, and then the ecosystems flourish by bringing in also application maybe developed by startups as well for regulators, leveraging fluidity and leveraging a network of actors that already exist, where you can just place your own application there and enable new kind of transactions that will simplify the reporting to regulators.
Thank you, Antonio. Antonio, we've got a question here that says, provided it's a nice compliment, provided the CAT XL module will work well and will thrive in the industry over the next few months, how long do you think it will take before to roll out versions with less commoditized placements other than CAT XL, per risk excess loss, pro rata treaties, or special line treaties?
Great question. Well, our challenge for next year is to really cover all lines of business, all types of contracts. And this has been part of our vision since the beginning. And as such, we have taken specific architectural decisions in the way we have developed our risk transfer language. We made it with the purpose of supporting excess of loss event per event treaties first, but also to be capable of evolving into every other kind of line of business, contract types, market. And that's one key element that I'd like to highlight here. We developed the risk transfer language with the purpose of accelerating the development also of interoperable applications on a distributed ledger. We faced lots of challenges in the journey because we had to embed into the domain model many of the pre-requirements that DLT brings. You have to take into consideration the distributed fashion of a system. All the applications interoperating in a distributed network, it's not something that can be solved with the, let's say, old-fashioned way of developing solution in a vertical mode. So we had to embed in the model also the capabilities of this model to support the upgradability, to support the evolution, and to accelerate this movement. So,
Antonio, I think
at the end of the year.
Antonio, I think you touched on something that answers or goes some way to answering one of the other questions that I'm going to pick up, which is, again, by Curti K, is B3i working on reinsurance capital requirements? Is B3i looking to partner with startups in the space for insurance-linked securities? I think with the risk transfer language that we've architected, that Antonio is talking about, it's really our vision to have the a common definition of an insurance contract, of events, and so that we can have insurable items in retail policies or commercial insurance policies that cascade through, that are then the insured under reinsurance treaties, and ultimately then as part of insurance-linked securities. We want to be able to go beyond technical accounting as we know it today, but actually have chained contracts where you cascade the events through all the contracts that are connected. So where one has chosen to have standardized contracts that have parametric terms, you're able to have granular risk details that flow all the way through to the chain of insurance cover, and really bring risk closer to capital and truly remove friction from risk transfer. And to that end, ILS is something that's always been on our radar, and it's we've had a number of exploratory conversations with some of the stakeholders in the market. So it's something we would be very happy to engage in a conversation with any interested parties.
Thanks, John. Thank you. We have a question here. It says, would you allow or do you plan to invite other blockchain-focused initiatives into the public or private blockchain space from around the world? I think we've always discussed that we're not trying to dominate.
Correct, right? You know, for us, what is important is the business value. We're not fundamentalist of private or public. What is fundamental is the value for the customer. And what is critical is the feasibility. is the fact that we want to go live and we want to generate real value for customers that have enterprise-grade infrastructure where they need to comply with loads of restrictions and so on. So these are our key elements. It's true that we do some experimentation, but we are a transformation engine and we work on technologies that can bring real value today. So that's, we're not closing the door to anything, but we're opening the door to everything that can generate a real impact on the market in the shortest, medium, and long term as well. There is a question which I'd like to pick, Red.
Go ahead. Yep.
Which is related to the importing on ledger of the legacy business. So the contracts, runoff contracts, and so on. Which is a good question because it looks at the network side. The question says, in terms of legacy business as being discussed now, does that mean that all the participants to the legacy contract need to be on the system for this to work effectively? That's a great question. And I think it's a question that opens one of the key elements of a network technology. And network technology that brings with him a specific concept or paradigm, which is access, okay? A network technology, that can be the telephone, for example. How do you access the telephone network, the mobile network, if you don't have a mobile phone? And accessibility for us is a fundamental thing. We want to make the infrastructure accessible. And we are developing lots of different models on how the industry can access this infrastructure. We started, and here I'm very transparent, initially with the concept that being this a distributed technology, it can only exist with Node on-premise. But then discussing with customers, we understood that sometimes at the speed they move with their internal IT demands, it may be difficult to cope with the speed at which we move at B3i with the release of our solution, which is done every 2 weeks. Can you imagine? So we had different companies that have been able to cope with our speed and companies that haven't, and we developed for them a different offering, which is our Node as a service offering, which at the moment is one of the best in the market, because we're not focusing, going to one of the questions, which is non-profit or profit. We're not focusing on selling a service there. We are focusing in enabling an access. And our service must be at the level that is compatible with the requirements and the needs of an enterprise customer, but also is one of the best in terms of price. It's one of the best offering at the moment. And we went there. We reduced a lot the cost of accessing the network, and we enabled a new offering, which is the Node as a service offering and the network as a service offering that B3i offers through B3i Fluidity and so on. But we're also looking beyond that, because we really want to create a commodity there to enable access end-to-end and globally. So I think more will come in that direction in the next months, but you can bet that for us to pursue our vision and our mission, we will be constantly focused in lowering the barrier of adopting such technology and accessing the network. As a matter of fact, we have been recognized also with this leadership position by the Corda Network Foundation, and our chief architect, Alessandro Spadoni, is part of the board of the Corda Network Foundation, where we discuss exactly this type of topics, enabling the access to the network and enabling, removing and lowering the barrier, making really a true commodity for the industry.
Thanks, Antonio. Thank you for taking that question. We're going to wrap this up shortly. John's just going to take 2 final questions, and then I'll have some closing messages for everyone. So, John, we had a question on Accord. Does B3i work hand in hand with Accord standards, or is it a totally different initiative?
Okay, thanks very much, Fred. So Accord do a great job of promoting standards throughout the industry, and so we recognize that a number of our customers and our shareholders alike have invested in infrastructure, Accord gateways to use Accord messaging. And so as a result, we're very committed to enabling integration with Accord gateways via Accord messaging, ECOT and eBot messaging. So this is something that we've thought a lot about, and will be making possible as one of the ways to integrate with B3i. So it isn't Accord and B3i. We're not the same thing, but we certainly see them as a powerful industry body, and do work alongside them.
Thanks, John.
Then there is another question that I saw regarding the MENA region. So are we active in the MENA region? I think, was that it? Do you currently have any participants from the MENA region? So with the reinsurance product that we have already, it obviously covers global risks. A number of our shareholders have operations throughout have global operations and are active in the Middle East and North Africa. There are some companies. We have an African shareholder in African Re that are active across the continent. And then through many of the phases that we've been involved, there have been a number of other Middle Eastern and North African companies that have engaged with us. So I guess that's a yes.
Thanks, John. Okay, guys, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much to everybody who submitted their questions. I actually think we got through the vast majority of them. If we haven't answered your question, we'll address them in a questions and answers document on the B3i website at a later date, or we'll follow up directly with any direct inquiries that we've had. But just a last reminder that tomorrow we have another session, which is a product deep dive with Antonio, who will be joined by his product team as they do a live demonstration. And I really encourage you to join that. And then straight after that, we have our technical session with our head of engineering, Stephen Houston, and our chief architect, Alessandro Spadoni, sorry. And that's a really good deep dive on the technologies underlying B3i Re. So if you head over to launch.b3i.tech, there's still places on there to sign up for. And I think you'll find that a really, really useful session. All that leaves is to say thank you to our speakers. Thank you both. And thank you to everyone who attended today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Looking forward to tomorrow's session.